everybody, and happy Easter! This is Easter 2020. So what is different about this Easter than all the other Easters we've ever experienced? Nobody's at church! No one's at church! We are quarantined because of the coronavirus. Isn't that crazy? But we're still here, and we're still celebrating, and it is a gorgeous day outside. So what I'd like to do today is talk about what is Easter, and what does that mean to us spiritually? Because we are mind, body, and spirit, and the mind does this funny stuff, right? It hears things, and our ego gets in there and says, my story about Easter is better than your story about Easter. I'm right. And the ego loves to be right all the time, right? And so what people don't really understand is that Easter's been going on for a long time. The celebration of this time of year has been going on for probably over 40,000 years. 40,000 years, because this was the agricultural age. This is when man and humankind, don't you love that word, humankind? I love that. When we were in touch with the seasons and the stars and the traveling of the sun, and we understood that there was the solstice and then there was the equinox. And what man learned was that at the spring equinox, which is what we just celebrated on March 21st, that is when the days are exactly the same time. The night equals the day. That's why it's called the equinox. The winter solstice is the longest night. The summer solstice is the longest day. But the spring equinox and the fall equinox are the two equal days. So this was a time in ancient time for great celebration and appreciation. The Celts would go out every morning and welcome the sun because they knew how important the sun was. Now for many, many, many years, the sun was actually worshipped as God. And you know that way, way back, it was a she. It changed into a he later. But the early ancients saw the sun as female because it was nurturing and warm. So why does Easter fall on a different day every year? It's the only one that we have to look at our calendars and say, when is Easter this year? Kind of like, when is Thanksgiving this year? It's not on the same date. We always know it's the fourth Thursday in November. Well, Easter is always the first Sunday after the first full moon after the equinox. So you have equinox, full moon, the next Sunday is Easter. So last week, we had the most beautiful pink full moon. Now another thing that the ancients saw in the moon, and maybe you've seen this too, I know my dad used to point it out when we were little. Look, there's the Easter bunny up in the moon. How many of you ever experienced that? Right? There's the Easter bunny, and when you look, you go, oh my gosh, and he's holding a great big egg in the pattern of the moon, right? So what does that mean? Well, the Native Americans believed that that was a sign of fertility, the bunny. The bunny, the hare, that is the sign of fertility. So earlier, our reader, Dot, talked about Oestre or Eostre. Eostre, that's it. And when you look at it, it looks like it's spelled almost Easter, right? They believe that this is why we call it Easter, because of the goddess, Eostre. And what she did was she had found a little bird with frozen wings. And she transformed it into a bunny because it wasn't surviving. She says, well, if you're a bunny with fur because it was cold, you'll survive. So in gratitude, this little hare laid a bunch of colored eggs for her as a gift. So that's where we get from that story is where we get our tradition of Easter baskets and colored eggs, which my grandchildren last night were showing me how they colored their eggs. How many people here have ever colored eggs, right? I'm sure that there's a lot of people that are coloring eggs and the kids still found the eggs, right? Because we're not at church, but we're at home. And we're celebrating with our families. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We still have the pretty dresses. My little granddaughters still have their Easter dresses. I used to get gloves. Anybody know? The hat, right? My mother always gave me a special dress. My mother was so awesome with Easter. And all of them would get to be our pretty self, little girls, right? And then my brothers all had the bow ties and all of that. So Easter has become a wonderful tradition in America, but it's also celebrated in different ways all over the world of the new beginning of spring. So Constantine was the first person, or when he converted the whole Roman Empire into Christianity. Before, it was the god Apollo. So he was a sun worshiper. And I don't mean that by Saint-Tropez, no. He was a sun, they worshiped the sun. And they called the sun Apollo. And he was going into battle, and he saw this sign, this big, round, the sun had a cross in it. And Christianity had become a new kind of way of thinking, and it was getting very, very popular. And he looked up there and he saw the X or a cross, we don't know exactly, and he had all of his soldiers write that on their tunics. He said, if I go in there and if I can win this battle in Rome, I will convert the whole empire into Christianity. And he won. And he kept his promise. But he never really converted to Christianity, not for a long time. So he established a meeting, a council that they all went to Nicaea, which is now kind of Turkey, Constantinople, Turkey. And they put a book together called the Bible, 350 years after Jesus. So they gathered all these letters, they gathered all these stories, everything that they could get their hands on, and then they made a book called the Bible. And also at that council, he said, okay, we're going to have a celebration at this time of the year, right? Because they celebrated different ways. And so he said it's going to be on a Sunday. Well, see his little trick there? Sunday, right? Because he was still going for the sun thing, right? And so, but he was complimenting the Christians and trying to put the two belief systems together, you see. Which is what Doc was talking about earlier, is how different cultures, even they go, oh, well, we celebrate that time of year too, or we celebrate that. In fact, that's how Christmas happened as well. They were all celebrating the god Apollo because it was winter solstice, and the Christian says, we're going to celebrate Jesus' birthday, right? And so that's how all that happened. So you find that you have a lot of our celebrations and our traditions all circle around food. Food, survival, crops, the survival of the crops, the sun and its importance in the survival of the crop. Right? So that's what we find. And so what I'd like to do is share with you my own upbringing, which I had a very strong Catholic upbringing. But I'm also finding out through different traditions, Christian traditions, that I was talking to God earlier, I keep talking, we talked a lot before today, but we were talking about how we celebrate it. And so it was a very important holiday. We had Holy Thursday, we had Good Friday, we had Holy Saturday, and then we had Easter. And it all celebrates the death and resurrection. The death and resurrection of Jesus. A wonderful man. I love Jesus. Jesus was such an awesome guy. I wish that I could have hung out with him. I really do. Because he was so awesome. So let's take a look at Jesus. There's a movie, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, Chocolat. And it's a great movie about this chocolate, right? And it's with Johnny Depp. If you haven't seen it, it's a wonderful movie. But at the end, they're celebrating Easter. And the priest gets up and he says, I don't want to talk about the resurrection and the death of Jesus in that context. Let's talk about the man, Jesus. And why did he leave such an impact on us? Why did he do what? Because he was so awesome. He had these wonderful one-liners. But the biggest thing that Jesus did for his people, which were the Jewish people, which, by the way, the Jews, the Muslims, everybody, they all love Jesus. Nobody doesn't love Jesus, okay? Everybody goes, no, Jesus was okay, right? There's been wars fought about it, but no, Jesus was awesome. So I'm here to tell you Jesus was so awesome. So let's look at Jesus as the man. Like that priest said in that movie, let's look at him as the man. So what did Jesus do? And why was he so influential? Well, because his people believed in a punishing God. Well, you made me pretty mad. Let's see, watch this. And then floods everything up. There's a few people that are left. Noah, good for you. You listened to me. You made that boat. That's great, right? And so this is what they were, the plagues, the boat, all of this stuff. Sodom and Gomorrah, all of this stuff. Talked about an angry God that was going to punish you if you did anything wrong. And Jesus came along and said, new story. God is love. And in fact, right now, like I said, this is Easter 2020. We are dealing with a thing called the coronavirus. And somebody called that an act of God the other day. I went, what? No, God is love. God is not tornadoes. God is not hurricanes. God is not earthquakes. God is not floods. God is not the coronavirus. God is love. But when do we go looking for God? In those dark times. In those dark times. That's when we go looking for God. And I know, as far as I'm concerned, I've been doing a lot more praying and meditating and just being around love and feeling love and wanting to be loved. That was Jesus' whole message. But they put the two books together in the Bible. So you've got the Torah, which is the Old Testament. Then you got the New Testament. And I will have to say that in my 12 years of Catholic school, we only read from the New Testament. We never read the Old Testament. And this is how I fell in love with Jesus. And then when I started understanding God and in a personal level and understanding Jesus and what that was, there's a song today that I will be doing, or that I did, called When I Fly. And let me tell you what happened to me when I wrote that song. When my spirit's filled with love and I am one with God, there is no earth, there is no sky. There's only God and I. And those of us who've ever experienced spiritual ecstasy, which is just being in the presence of God and feeling that warm blanket just wrapping around you, that beautiful, loving, beautiful love of God just all over you, right? What happened when I was writing that song, I had a little vision. And I had a vision of a crystal clear pool. And as those words were coming to me, I could see the face of Jesus in that crystal clear pool. And I started walking closer to it, and it never changed. And then I looked into the pool, and it never changed. And I went, oh my gosh. Jesus is the reflection of my soul. That's why we love Jesus so much. That part of us that is only love. That's the part of us that is made in the image of God. And Jesus is our tangible presence of that. The words that came out of his mouth, the beauty of his miracles, the beauty of his message of love, our soul went, yes, 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 yes. That's the message of Jesus. That's it. So let's look at those 4 days that I just talked about and see what that is. Okay, so we got Holy Thursday. There's the meal. And is Jesus brilliant? He said, hey guys, whenever you're hanging, whenever you're gathering around and you're eating bread and wine, think about me. How brilliant is that? How often do people sit at a table and eat bread and wine back in those days, right? He anchored them. What about Friday, Good Friday? What's that mean? The death. You have to die to the past to begin something new. You have to unload the past. And that's what Jesus did. He said, this is the new covenant. This is the new covenant. So pay attention. Pay attention. And that was the sacrifice. Pay attention. God is love. That's the message of Jesus. And if it's not love, it's not God. Okay? It's that simple. Also, then you have your quiet time, which is Holy Saturday, when Jesus was living in the tomb. Quiet time. And then Sunday, the big party. Whee! He rose from the dead, right? And then Mary Magdalene is in the garden, and he's there. He goes, hey, Mary. She's going, what? She thought it was the gardener. It was Jesus. He rose. What's that about? Maybe it means we never really die. Maybe that's the message of the garden. In fact, that song, I come to the garden alone. You know that song? And he walks with me and he talks with me. That was written about Mary Magdalene meeting Jesus in the garden. So in closing, what I'd like to do is just mention a couple of those brilliant one-liners that Jesus did. And if you just remember his words and his message, really go into, when you want to read the Bible, go into the New Testament and try to really understand what Jesus was trying to tell us. Okay? It's awesome. Awesome. Okay, so do this in remembrance of me. Brilliant. Every time people sit around, they talk, he knows they're going to talk about it. Because everybody eats every day, hopefully. Right? And if there's bread and wine, a little bit of party going on, right? So you wanted it to be happy. Think of meaning happiness. Forgive them. They don't know what they do. That's from the cross, right? That we hear. That message. Don't take things personally. They don't know how awesome you are. And what happens is we buy into other people's belief that we're not awesome. Where the truth is, they don't feel awesome about themselves and they have to project that. Okay? I told my little granddaughter, She said, Mom, Granny, or Nana, oh, Nana, she says, there's a little girl at my school and she's always mean to me. And I said, then you tell her you're not allowed to talk to me unless you are nice. My Nana said so. Right? You're not allowed to talk. Don't allow people to talk ugly to you. Don't. Because guess what? God loves you as much as God loves that person. Isn't that crazy? So God's going, oh, you get points, you don't. No, it's all equal. It's all equal. When you see the world through the eyes of a child, you see the kingdom of heaven. Spend an afternoon with a toddler, and you'll know what that means. There's no prejudice. There's no judgment. There's only wonder. He who is without sin cast the first stone. What does that mean? Was he trying to put a guilt trip on? You know, they say that he was writing something in the sand. I think he just wrote the Roman numeral V, which is 5, which is the 5th commandment, which is thou shalt not kill. Don't kill her. Right? That's my own personal belief. Everybody has their theory. On earth as it is in heaven, you can find heaven on earth. Anytime you experience peace, love, or joy, that is our heaven on earth. Acknowledge it and give it appreciation. These things and more you can do. Now that's one that's hard to wrap our minds around until you start creating miracles. Until you start giving it and letting it go and say, God, I'm paying attention. You lead the way and show me what my part. I can testify to that, but that would take another hour and a half, okay? And I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness. The light, the sun, the celebration of new beginnings. That's what Easter is. I love you all. Thank you.